Hello, hello. What's going on, everybody? We are back here live officially. A few of you may have seen, because we've been doing it the last couple days. I did a few private little secret tests that I didn't tell anybody about. Maybe you've seen them on replay the last couple days, and possibly you were able to join during the last couple days if you happen to find me on YouTube at the time I was doing the recording. But as you can see, if you haven't, there's some new things that are going on. I'm in a new office. I've got a new setup here. So I've been kind of troubleshooting some gear, new equipment, got some new lights, some new streaming software. So you'll probably see on the screen that you're watching right about here, you can see powered by StreamYard. StreamYard is a new software that I'm trying out this week. And I've absolutely been loving it. It's allowing me to easily share my screen so that when we look at bids together, I can kind of, be on the side and we can zoom in on the solicitation documents, things like that. So it's been super, super helpful. I'm probably going to invest in the software. And once I do that, you won't be seeing this icon. Instead, you'll see my logo up here or something like that. But if you didn't know why that's up there, you'd probably be wondering what's going on. So that's kind of what's going on with that. So the last couple of days, we have done live bid reviews. 2 days ago, we did snow removal. Yesterday, we did freight and trucking logistics. We went through a couple of bids. And today, as advertised in the thumbnail and in the email, if you caught the email that went out, we're going to be looking at janitorial bids today live because we did have that request in the comments. I do plan to go live tomorrow. I know it's New Year's Eve, but I think I can swing it. So we'll probably do another one just like this tomorrow. So if I haven't covered your industry and you would want me to look at some bids for your industry, then feel free to add that in the chat towards the end. Or if you're going to watch this on replay, maybe later today, feel free to add that in the comments as well. I will check those if anybody has any other additional requests for industries. So as you guys know how it is, I'm pretty laid back. It's a pretty laid back setting. We're going to say hi to the chat here. 911 Bishop, hello. Hello. Hope you're doing well. If you guys are here in the chat, let me know so that I can say hello to you. And then in just a minute, we're going to head over to beta.sam. And I do have a couple of janitorial bids pulled up already. So we'll dive into one of those in just a minute, go through the documents and kind of extract the key information and kind of tell you what you would need to respond to it. And the whole point of doing this is really to narrow the gap, try and answer some of the questions that you have around bidding in the federal space. And it's just one of the biggest things that keeps people away from jumping in. And I understand it's overwhelming. It's contract lingo. And so I try to help answer some of those questions for you. And doing it live is the whole reason why I'm doing this kind of new setup, because before they were all pre-recorded videos. So it was difficult for me to kind of answer questions. This way we can kind of answer questions as we go through it. So also, just as you know, as we're going through it today, if you're live and watching, you can ask questions during the video if you have questions about the particular bid that we're looking at. And we usually have some time at the end for Q&A for just, whatever GovCon related stuff you want to talk to me about or ask questions. This is me kind of giving you, some time. So it's up to you whether you want to take advantage of it. But so there'll be some time for Q&A at the end. But if you do have specific questions about the bid that we're going to ask those when you have them, because I will be bouncing back and forth between the chat as we go throughout the session today. So Josh, what is going on? Looking forward to the stream. Thanks for being here, Josh. 911 Bishop, will you be taking questions after the video? Yes, I did just answer that. So again, if you have questions about the bid, we will answer that throughout. And then anything else, feel free to ask at the end of, towards the end, and I'll kind of let you know when we can start taking those type of questions too. It just helps keep me focused. It's hard enough to keep me kind of on focus. So Felina Clark, thanks for joining again. Thank you so much. Willie Swing, hello. Hello, how are you? So guys, I think we are good. Hope you like the new place at the very least. If you haven't seen it before, I'm pretty excited. I'm really excited about the whole setup. So first thing I can show you here is check this out. I can share my screen and you can still see me. So it looks kind of cruddy right now because of the infinite screens. But when I bounce over to a bid, so now you should be able to see me. And you can also see on the screen beta.sam, an actual janitorial services bid that I have pulled up. So this is kind of what we're going to be doing, and I'll bounce between this type of screen, and then I can come back here full view. So that's kind of how we're going to be doing. I see you just hopped on doing a live applying for a bid. No, I'm not doing a live applying for a bid, but what I am doing is a live bid review. That's what we're about to get started with. And I'm kind of walk you through the documents, kind of point out some of the more important areas. It's all important, of course, but also extract some of that key information that you should be looking for to know how do you respond to this thing. That's really where I think the value is. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing. I'm not actually doing a bid that I'm applying to. It's a live bid review. And Joy Monica, hello, thanks for joining. So guys, let's jump over into it. As you can see, I've got a few pulled up in my tab. We'll just take it one at a time. So janitorial services, Niagara Falls, New York, Department of Agriculture. This is due, this was due December 15th. So I pulled everything within the past 30 days. So this particular one, applications and responses have already been submitted, but it's still recent enough for us to go through it. That's why I pulled it. The set aside for this is a small business set aside. So anybody who's a small business can respond to this. The NAICS code for this is the Common Janitorial Services NAICS code. There is a janitorial service NAICS code that exists. I know it's hard to find codes for certain types of industries. This one is 561720. They're telling us right off the bat in this description, this is for a base plus 4 option years. So this would be up to a 5-year contract. If the government decides to execute on the options, and it says to provide, of course, janitorial services at least once per week at the USDA location here in Niagara Falls. Looking down, we have only 2 document attachments to go through. We will be going through both of those. And we also see that we have Letitia Holman is the contracting officer or the specialist who is on this. Letitia is the one who is basically procuring for this requirement. So you will be responding to her. So we can see one of these documents is a wage rate. The other one is the solicitation document. And then you can tell that because usually in the title of the document, it has a solicitation number. So I always get started with that first. It's usually the biggest, the longest to get through. Everything else is usually pretty straightforward. This is what the typical solicitation opening doc will look like. It'll be on a form like this, often SF 1449. That happens to be what this form is, because you can see right down here, they actually call it an SF 1449 form. So this form you fill out by putting the name, date, print and sign. Also put your contractor's address in here. They also tell us the period of performance is December 16th through September 30th of 2025. So that's all of the option years plus the base year. And that's, I got to look at this because December 16th, that I believe was the due date for the responses, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, it was the 15th. So that's crazy. You should be able to see that that's kind of insane that the offers were due on the 15th and then the period of performance begins on the 16th. They were really not messing around with this unless something kind of happened like behind the scenes and then they pushed back the POP. But just kind of looking at this, examining it, these are the type of things you want to pay attention to when you're looking at a bid, because if this was the contractor, and this is why I'm taking a minute to talk about this, they would have less than 1 day to have their people ready to go to perform service on this requirement. That's just absolutely unheard of. Hopefully that POP ended up being pushed back on the back end. Let me make sure we're good in the chat here. Florentina says, thank you. My RFQ is due today, so I'm glad you're doing this before I submit this afternoon. Yeah, absolutely. If you, hopefully you can get any, questions answered that maybe are related to what we're covering in yours as well. If yours is, Florentina, if yours is janitorial, feel free to let me know and I'll pull it up for you. We can look at it live if it's janitorial. If it's not, I want to keep it on topic, but just that slight chance it's janitorial, I can probably squeeze it in and we can look at it live if you want. If so, just send me the beta.sam.gov link through the chat and I'll be able to open it up. Happy to help you out with that. But yeah, let's get back to it. So again, just keeping in mind, due dates are often, they're always important, but when they're related to the POP like that, when you have to start work, you need to have a little bit of time to get ready to go. So yeah, that's kind of interesting that they did that. So anyways, the 1449 form, SF 1449 form rather. And then they bring us this notes to quoters. The solicitation is for a firm fixed price, essentially saying they're going to give you X amount of, you're going to submit X amount of dollars. Don't come back asking them for more money. This is simplified acquisition procedure. This is for the U.S. Department of Agriculture. We know that, USDA. Evaluations will be conducted using FAR Part 13 procedures, and the award will be made on best value. So typically there are two evaluation that are primarily used, evaluation methods. You either have lowest price, technically acceptable, LPTA, or you have best value. LPTA means the lowest price is going to get it, all else considered, pending that you are found to be technically acceptable, of course. And then best value means we're going to take the company who shows the most confidence to us that they can best perform on the requirement, because we don't want this to get messed up by somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. So we're willing to pay a little bit more for that. So that's really the difference between the lowest price and best value. That confidence can come from having, past performance or a more sound technical approach, or maybe, a better looking resume, depending on what type of requirement it is. These are all things that could fall into, a best value type consideration. So they're telling us this is best value, which means it's not going to be lowest price. They're not just going to take whoever is the lowest price and choose them. So that's really important for you to know when it comes to your pricing strategy. They're telling us the following items are required to be submitted in order to be eligible for award. Number one, signed copy of the SF 1449 form. I already touched on that, but that's this form, okay? Your name, your address, whatever they're asking here, print, sign, date. You usually have to acknowledge any amendments if they have them, but they don't have any, so there's nothing to acknowledge. So that's it. It's very simple. Number two, the price schedule for each year for the contract. They want you to fill that out. We haven't seen that yet, but I'm confident that we will. Number three, you must be registered in SAM and have a DUNS number. And they're giving you instructions on how to do that if you don't have it. Most of you probably already have that. So that's 1, 2, 3, and then they jump to 6. So I'm not sure what happened to 4 and 5, but we'll keep rolling with it. So number 6, any questions can be emailed to Letitia Holman. Got it. Not a big deal. Number 7, you can email your quote directly to Letitia Holman. And then 8, USDA is an agency of the federal government, tax exempt, federal ID number. So they're pretty much saying, hey, give us the SF 1449 form filled out, complete the pricing schedule for this, make sure you're registered in SAM, and then once you do all that, send your quote to Letitia by the response due date. And if you have any questions before that, before the response due date, you can also send those to her as well. Those are really the instructions that they've given us. And then you can see right after that, they give us the price schedule here. And this is really going to be the bulk of it based on what they just told us, what they want for in a response. And they've also already told us the evaluation criteria, which is going to be best value. And so it's kind of strange that they're saying best value when they're only asking for price, because how are you supposed to prove that you're the best value if they're only giving you price to look at, right? So we'll see what else they have in this, but that's just the way my mind initially reacts to something like this. I would expect for them to ask for a resume or something at least. So they're saying the contractor shall furnish all personnel, supervision, transportation to perform required janitorial services at the USDA Stewart Avenue at West Hampton Beach, New York facility. Got it. And for this base contract, there's three things they're asking. Number one, janitorial services once per week, including a spray buff as needed. That's the first CLIN. That's the first line item that you have to price for. And they're saying they want the price for that monthly. So for the unit price, you're going to say, what does it cost for 1 month? Okay. These services, just line item number one. And then for the total, you're going to take that unit price that was based off of the 1 month and multiply it by the total quantity, which is 12. So you take that price, multiply it by 12, and then you would get your total. Pretty straightforward math, but that's how they want you to do it. Then the next item is once per year, they want you to strip and wax the floor. So how much would that cost for 1 year? Your unit price is going to end up being the same as the total because you're just multiplying it by 1. And then twice per year, inside out window cleaning, you would do the same thing. And then you add that up, and that will be your total based year pricing. So the pricing like this, I mean, pricing changes for every bid that you're looking at. And I'm going to come back and check the chat in a minute. So if they're giving you a pricing structure, that's a good thing because they're telling you how they want it. You know, the less information, it gets a little bit more risky, a little bit more dangerous if you're not bidding it properly. This, they are literally holding your hands line item by line item, telling you how to calculate your number. It's just up to you to put in your magic number for your unit price and then do the math. It's pretty easy. So what you're going to do is that's your base year. And then since there's 4 option years, you're just going to do the same thing for 2021 to 2022, then to 23, then to 24, and then to 25. Then you get base year totals for each. So you'll end up having 5 totals. Well, it's really base year total. And then this should be option year total 1. That looks like they forgot to change that. Option year total 2, option year total 3, option year total 4. So don't get that confused. So let me visit you guys back in the chat. Make sure you're still doing all right. Groove Kids, Margot here. I have a janitorial. Do I have to have money up front before applying for these contracts for payroll, etc.? Well, you're going to have to pay your people, and payment from the government is usually net 30 or sometimes net 60. If you've never been set up in a government system, it can take an extra 30 days. So you will have to have that money up front to float that. So if that's what you're asking, here, let me highlight your comment. So yeah, I mean, the government's not going to pay you money up front. They never do. That's just how government contracting is. So you want to be able to float that until the cash flow starts coming through your invoices that you'll be submitting. So yes. And then Florentina, it looks like Florentina has a janitorial bid. So that's awesome. Once I finish this one, I will look at this one instead of the one that I had prepared, because now we have somebody who's actually bidding today, guys. That's actually super exciting. So yeah, let me go ahead. I will snag this link so I don't lose it, if it allow me to pull it from the chat here. Yeah, I'm having trouble pulling it from the chat. Florentina, if you could type in the solicitation number into the chat, and then that's something that will be easier than me using the whole link. I don't know why it's not letting me copy and paste the link itself, but we can try that. And then in the meantime, I will continue going through and finishing the one we're looking at. Santiago, thank you for all your content. I'll be starting bidding soon in January. Happy New Year. Hey, that's so awesome. Thank you for stopping by and joining us. I'm trying to get as many people motivated as possible and to help crush through those boundaries, those fears, those things that are holding you back. That's really why I try to do these bid readings, because that's kind of like the biggest thing that I found. So I'm super happy to hear that. Thanks for sharing that. So yeah, okay, guys, looks like we're caught up on the chat. I will bounce back to where we left off. Florentina, got it. Okay, thanks I got your solicitation number, so we should be good to pull that once we are finished with this one. Super happy that we'll be able to help on that. That makes me feel good. That's awesome. I'm glad. It's like it's the day before New Year's. Christmas just ended, and you're still bidding. Like that's the way to do it. That's awesome. Okay, so those are the pricing tables. Next, we have the statement of work, which is going to be details that you're going to want to know for when you start doing the work. And there may be some details in here that would help you price as well before you get awarded a contract. So they're telling us, provide janitorial services at the port of entry at least once per week. Specs are below. We already know the place of performance. They're telling us the square footage is 4,080 square feet. Gives us an idea of the size of the facility. And then more importantly, they're telling us the duties and the tasks. So we have an office area and an entryway. They're literally telling you, dust the desk, the chairs, the tables, sweep them off the floors. I'm not going to read every one of these bullets. They're saying strip and wax the floors yearly. And they did give us a place to price for that separately. But we got the restrooms, windows and glass doors, barn area. So they're not leaving anything to chance. So with you having the square footage of the facility and being able to see the duties and the frequency of the duties, there really should not be too many like dark areas that you don't know. Like most of your questions should be illuminated because this really is the entire job. But if you have questions with something like this, something they don't cover, that's when you would go and email, Letitia Holman on this, for example, and maybe she missed something. Maybe they didn't think about something. Maybe somebody else is looking at this and has the same question as you. So if that happens, send an email, okay? Like, don't be afraid. They're telling you chemical supplies, cleaning supplies, equipment, labor, supervision shall be provided by the contractor. However, the USDA shall provide trash can liners, paper products, including paper towels and toilet tissue, so that you don't have to price for that in your bid, because that's considered government furnished equipment, GFE. In this case, it's just going to be stuff that they have that they can replace after you perform the service here. So that's something you'd want to know so that you don't price for that. So it makes your price more competitive. When at all possible, the vendor is encouraged to use bio-based cleaning supplies. So, we talked about the technical portion that they haven't requested, but they're calling it a best value. If you were going to give them a little bit extra, even though I know I tell you not to usually do that, we'll see what the rest of this looks like. But this could be one way to give yourself a competitive advantage. If you are able to use bio-based, they're telling you this is one of their pain points. They want you to use bio-based as much as possible without, what do they say? Without jeopardizing the intended use of the overall quality, right? So it's got to actually work and sanitize. If you can say, hey, we're all bio-based, or we're 90% bio-based, or something like that, something like that could give you a competitive advantage, and is why reading through these is so important. The core, the contracting officer's representative, that's going to be the person who walks through, make sure you did a good job. They're going to sign off and give you a plus or whatever on your report card, and that's what you're going to use to submit to invoice. So the core works with the contracting officer, this contracting officer, and then the contracting officer's representative. This is the person who's on the ground and will speak with the contracting officer, but they do not replace the officer. The officer really is the only one who can make changes to a contract. This core person they're talking about, the representative, they can only enforce the contract. Any changes have to go through the officer, so don't forget about the real person. That's the most important. You got to make them both happy, essentially. Make two different people happy. They're telling us there's a wage determination attached. We will look at that. Hours of operation, invoice instructions, place of performance. We kind of already know that. Safeguarding clauses. So we're going to kind of quickly speed through this now. Here are reps inserts. I talk about reps inserts a lot. You need to essentially check the boxes, see these little boxes. When you submit this, you'll see this very, very often. And they're just, common questions about your business setup. You're not delinquent in taxes. What is your set aside? Things like that. And then we also have somewhat new representations regarding, regarding covered telecom. So now there's some equipment that's made by Chinese companies that the government wants to make sure you're not using because it's national security risk. So they're putting this in a lot of bids, even if it doesn't pertain. So it's like an extension of the reps inserts. Now you have to check these boxes as well. And so that's it. That is the solicitation doc. And then we only have the wage determination to go through, which is really not that bad, not that much. So back to the chat here. Margaret says, I'm a new janitor. Where can I go for mentoring? I'm not sure what you mean. You're a new janitor. Are you new to having a janitorial business, or you're saying you're a new janitor? Oops, wrong one. I got ahead of myself. Angelique says, what do you suggest for winning a janitorial contract with no experience with the government? What I would suggest is to find a requirement that is not asking for experience, because not all of them request past performance or past experience. It looks like, yeah, I see a little bit in the chat here. Yeah, so past performance, prior experience. If you don't have it, that's not necessarily a bad thing. And that's not just janitorial specific. That's all of you guys that are watching live right now or watching, on the replay. If you're looking to get into government contracting and you don't have past performance, that doesn't mean you can't get into it. You see, if you had to have government past performance to get, just trying to check the chat here too, to get government contracts in the first place. If you had to have a government contract in order to get government contracts, nobody would have government contracts. So you either can use personal past performance, personal experience, or commercial past performance as well. If you don't have either of those, last thing you can try is, you can always try and be a subcontractor to gain those things as well. And that's something that's fairly common, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But another way is to just go after those opportunities that do not require past performance or past experience. And we're looking at one of them right now. This bid we've been going through does not require past performance or past experience. They're calling it best value, but the only thing they're asking for is, again, make sure you're registered in SAM, complete the SF 1449 form, and complete, most importantly, the pricing schedule. So they're not saying, show me 3 projects that you've done in the past. So a very good question, very common question. So my answer to you is to start responding to those opportunities that don't require it. And then once you get it, then you can use that to leverage and open up and go after more bids that do require it, because now you do have, a contract. So that's kind of what you would want to do. Brianna Hughes, thanks for joining. It was because of Brianna's recommendation and request that we were looking at janitorial requirements today. She was on with us yesterday. So thank you so much, Brianna. Hey, Berwin, what's going on? Question: for performing market research, do you prefer FPDS or USA spending, or both? Berwin, good question. USA spending is great for kind of tracking the money, following the money. So I would definitely use USA spending to, for example, find the agencies that are buying the most of what you're trying to sell. But when you're trying to look and do more specific contract, like say you're trying to find a previous dollar value for an old contract, something very specific, FPDS has been essentially the gold mine for all those contract specific information and data. However, FPDS has now been retired. So the website is still up, but I'll show you on my screen here again. Go to beta.sam. What's happening with FPDS, the Federal Procurement Data System, is it has now been retired. So you can do reports only, as you can see on my screen, but as part of this legacy site decommission, FPDS is essentially like gone. It's going away. They're not adding any new data to it or anything like that. So initially, I would tell you to go to that, but since that's going away, now we have to go to beta.sam.gov, and we have to use these filters, and you can search by more specific things. I don't love it, Berwin. I don't love it. We're kind of in this uncomfortable transition stage. But you can search by contractor awarded name. If you know the name of the contractor you're trying to do the type of research on. There's also a contract award number. If you've got the actual award number for a previous bid and you want to find out what it previously went for, so you know, like to ballpark the price, you can use something like this in the filters. But this is really all that we have now. You can use this in conjunction with FPDS to still run reports, but again, it's being decommissioned. So I just wouldn't get too stuck on that. So yeah. Margaret was, oops, wrong one. My chat keeps moving, guys. Margaret said, yes, I'm new to having a business in the janitorial. So yeah, that's kind of what we're talking about today. So just like anybody else, you need to play the numbers game by responding to janitorial type bids. And then you also have to build relationships, because just like with anything else in business, it really is who you know. It can really help for the longevity of your business. But to get started, you need to start getting bids out if you want to get serious about it. So how do you get started? Just like everybody else. Yeah. So guys, I can't respond to everybody right now in the chat. I'll try to get back to it. But since I know we have somebody who's responding to a bid today, I'm going to switch gears now. I'm going to go and pull that. Actually, just so inconvenient that it doesn't let me pull from the chat. So I'm going to write down the solicitation number that Florentina gave us, and then we're going to go and look at Florentina's bid, since that's also, she said, janitorial. This way we're actually helping somebody out today. I'm really, really happy to do something like this. So just bear with me while I get this pulled up, and then we're going to be looking at the next janitorial bid. I know we kind of cut the last one short a little bit, but we did find the key information, which is really my whole point of doing this. So I feel good at moving on at this point. I don't want to like beat it to death or anything. So I can still share my screen while we do this. So I'm going to clear out all my filters, and hopefully we can get this one pulled up for Florentina. So I got 127 EAV 21 Q0002. Cuesta Ranger District Janitorial Services. All right, cool. So Florentina, hopefully you are still with us, and we're going to kind of jump in this and see what kind of trouble we can get into. If you find yourself having a specific question, or if you already have a specific question, Florentina, let me know. I think this will be helpful for everybody, and we can all kind of root you on since you're bidding on this. So let's just go take a look at it. I'm going to go ahead and close out the other ones too. All right, here we go. So this is for the Department of Agriculture. This is due today at 4:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, as you said. This is total small business set aside. Got it. So and I'm just reading, so bear with me. I'm taking a little bit more importance to this since this is an actual bid that we're doing. So contractor shall provide pricing in accordance with the line items. This will be evaluated as a LPTA. Okay, guys, so this is a real LPTA, lowest price technically acceptable, that Florentina is working on. Work will be conducted on the Carson National Forest District office location in New Mexico. And the POC on this is Sarah Martinez. Cool. Questions were due on the 23rd, so that has since passed. Okay, questions will be due. Got it. All right, we've got Maria down here, and we just have one solicitation document to look at. We've already skimmed through everything else. Everything still looks good and in check. So I'm going to pull it up. I also want to close out the other one so we don't get them confused. So this is 28 pages. I'm seeing a lot of the same information that they copy and pasted. Questions due. Yep. All right. So we have a pricing schedule. It actually looks pretty similar, maybe a little bit more, slightly more extensive, but this pricing schedule looks very similar to kind of what we were just looking at. Monthly janitorial services, they're giving us a quantity unit of measure. So same thing, you give them the unit price and then you extend that out by the quantity. You may already have figured that out on your own. So let me know what questions you have and I'll check the chat in just a minute. But it looks like it's definitely a base with 4 option years. So very similar to the last one, 5-year contract, good. Cuesta Ranger District, period of performance. So janitorial services will commence. We were just talking about period of performance. So January 5th. So what day does January 5th fall on? Looks like it falls on next Tuesday. So you don't have a whole lot of time. So you got to be ready to go on this. I think you have enough time. At least it's not the next day like the one that we looked at. Background information. Contractor will provide a list of employee names in their bid proposal. So you got to know that you've got to have employee names. I don't know if they're asking for resumes, but at least they got to have the names. Contractor shall provide all background investigations for all employees that will access buildings for cleaning. All documents from the background investigation will be provided to the Forest Service within 90 days of the contract being awarded. So basically, if you get the contract, make sure the background investigations are also covered, but they're saying specifically provide a list of employee names in their bid proposal. I don't want to ignore that. I want you to put those names in your response. I don't know why they're just asking for the names. I don't know what they're going to do with names. You usually need more than a name to run a background check. Talking about keys, contractor responsibilities, nobody under the age of 16. Pretty straightforward stuff so far. Cleaning schedule. The area under contract will include the main office building, including the entryways, corridors, lobbies, conference rooms, and 2 restrooms, closets, and kitchen, as well as the fire readiness workout room. Okay. There will be services performed 3 times per week on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, and every 2 months, unless other arrangements have been made. So there will be services performed 3 times a week and every 2 months. It's a little, let me know if you understand that. It's a little confusing. There's a couple different ways that I'm reading that. But let's see what else we have. It says 3 times a week. Okay, I guess this explains it a little bit more because they're saying this is what they want done 3 times a week, some of the common stuff. And then every 2 months, this is what they want. So yeah, that's why I was a little confused, but that makes more sense. So they're breaking down the different duties and the frequency and even the timing of when they want them done. Again, they've given you a nice task services chart here as well. So not too bad. Let me check the chat and make sure that we are good. So Florentina, hopefully you are here and watching us. I don't see anything else from you about any specific questions you may have, and that's great. So I'm going to keep plowing through with this. I was just giving you a bit of special attention right now since this is your bid. So coming back, special cleaning requirements now. You must maintain an updated material safety data sheet. So this is something you would do once you're doing the work. You want to make sure you have a list of all the equipments, cleaners in this case, that you're using in case there's ever any like emergency type situation that happens. And also anything that is not eco-friendly. That's kind of what we're dealing with this type of data sheet. Usually they supply that though, and you just fill it out. Again, we primarily focus on things that are on the front end of bidding, trying to get the contract. Once you get the contract, you'll find that contracting and the folks on the inside are pretty helpful with helping you to, dot all the I's and cross all the T's that you need to do once you're into the contract. It's the stuff when you're on the outside that's really like the hardest. That's why I spend my time there. Inspection and acceptance. Again, I kind of alluded to this earlier. It's the core or whoever the designated manager is. They're going to perform these inspections to make sure you're doing a good job and kind of let you know if there's any issues. So inclement weather, subcontract. The contractor shall not subcontract nor have individuals under the age of 16 years to perform duties in connection. So they want the person, whoever's performing this, to be working for your company. They are strictly saying do not subcontract this out. This person has to be a representative for your company, ABC, LLC, whatever it is. But prior to the work starting, you'll see this fairly often. They will have a meeting. So they're calling this a pre-work conference, basically with the successful contractor, hopefully you. And they just want to, have a touch and go, get the warm and fuzzies, make sure that everybody's on the same page. And you do this before the work even starts. So that's common for all contracts. You usually have some sort of pre-con type meeting. This is pretty helpful that they're providing a map. So this can help you to anticipate the needs of the facility. We have some clauses incorporated by reference here. We have a wage determination. Now, since this is going to be a Service Contract Act, as you can see, I'll zoom in so you can see it, Service Contract Act. This is a SEA wage bound contract, which means you would have to find an occupation code that matches up with a dollar amount that is the minimum amount that the employee must get paid. So you would have to find whatever that is. It's kind of a little game that we have to play. This is how we use a wage determination. And a lot of you are going to have to do this. Anytime you have anything to do with staffing, professional services, this is going to be included. So it's important that you know how to use this. And it's not just this that's important. I don't talk about this a lot, but you also have to make sure to price for health and welfare, what they call it. They're saying minimum employer contributions cost an average of $454 per hour, computed on the basis of all hours worked. So really what they're saying here, guys, is you got to take that minimum amount number that we found up here that they're going to get paid. Say it was $22.10. You have to add $454 to it because contract employees get paid health and welfare. And if you get audited by the Department of Labor and you have not been paying it, they're going to make you pay back all of the money that you did not pay. And I know that because I've seen it happen. Literally, I've seen it happen. It's not funny at all. I've seen hundreds of thousands of dollars of stacks of checks that had to go to a government site and literally handed out to all the employees, all the back pay they were due. It's a really good way to put yourself out of business if you don't pay this and you get caught. So it's this number plus the 454 plus vacation, and holidays. So vacation is 2 weeks, holidays is 2 weeks. What this means is you can't charge the government for time that an employee does not work. So basically these 2 weeks plus 2 weeks, it's really 10 days plus 10 days. You have to build that in, which is why there's 2,080 hours in a year, but you can only bill the government off of 1,920 hours. So the magic number is 2080 and 1920. And the difference between those two numbers is this, because it's 2 weeks. So it's 80 hours plus another 80 hours. So you need to make sure you're accounting for paying your employee the vacation and paying your employee the holidays, because you can't bill the government for those. You can't add that in your invoice. If your employee didn't work, you can't bill the government, but you still have to pay the employee. So what that means is you have to include those costs in your rate based off of 1,920 hours. It's a lot to go into. I try not to go into it too much on YouTube, but it's kind of the pricing that you have to do if you're going to be in compliance. And since we're helping out a fellow contractor live on the channel right now, I'm giving you those recommendations to how to properly use this wage determination. But I quickly scrolled and it looks like that is the end of the solicitation. So let me bounce back to the chat. So Florentina, I see that you've got some things written here, so let me see what's going on. I've seen in previous videos about using last person that is on the contract for the new one. How do you get in contact with the current people? So good question. This is called, what Florentina is referring to, guys, is using an incumbent employee. So if there is an incumbent employee, the government wants you to offer what's called the right of first refusal. So if there is a person already doing this job, and you as a new contractor looking to staff this requirement, you need to offer the job first to whoever's already doing the job, and not the company, because they lost and you won, but the employee. So the employee would basically move from being their employee to being your employee. And that's what she's referring to. With this, though, you have to keep in mind, there's not always an incumbent employee. So if you know that there is one, you're in good shape, but you should still have a backup person. And if you don't know if there is one, you definitely need to have a candidate ready to go, because you can't always bank on the fact that there is going to be an incumbent employee that you can just retain. This could be a new need and they don't have anybody, so they're relying on you. So that is a good question. I saw information in there related to uniforms. I am confused as to whether they are required. So let me make note of that. I will go and try and find uniforms. And then what else? And guys, I'm just prioritizing Florentina right now, and I will try to get to your questions once we wrap this up. So just bear with me as I'm kind of skipping around here a little bit. Okay, it looks like I'm caught up with that. So let me go back and check for uniforms for you. Uniform. So let me make sure I am on the right screen for you. Okay. So uniform allowance, there is a uniform allowance, and this is a standard thing. I'm not sure if this is what you're referring to or if there is somewhere else. This is probably what you're referring to. So if employees are required to wear, this is an if. Basically, what's happening is if the customer wants your employee to wear a company uniform, you have to pay for that. Essentially, that's what they're saying here, and you got to make sure that they're able to get it cleaned and everything else. What are they saying down here? Reimburse all employees for such cleaning if they're required to have like special type of cleanings. Putting it like in the washer and dryer is not, but they're talking about special treatment and dry cleaning. So you would want to pay attention to this. And I mean, you're not going to have to worry about that because you're not going to be dry cleaning, probably clothing or uniforms for somebody doing performing janitorial services. That just would not be a match. But basically, I think your main takeaway from this is you can almost bank on it, them wanting, your employee to wear like and I've done this, and it's probably a good thing for you to know and for everybody to know. If you're in, staffing, professional services, if you're in the business of providing people for the government, it's a good idea to get some t-shirts, maybe some polos, something with a collar that has your company's logo on it, because that's free marketing for your business. They're going to be walking all over the government site and they're going to know who your business is. That's what they're talking about here. It's not always required. Sometimes they just say, oh, just wear business casual. But at all times, whenever you're a contract employee on a government site, you at least have to have a badge. So if you don't have like a shirt with your company name on it, you at least need to furnish your contractor employees with a badge with your company name on it. You can't just have your employees running around a government site with no identification. And also you want them like marketing and identifying your company to everybody. So if there's another customer that says, who do you work for? Like, we have a need, then they can kind of get in contact with you as well. It's a strategy that we use to kind of, once we get a contract and we pierce into an agency, we use part of that strategy to branch out inside that agency and try to get more contracts. So I'm putting the business development spin on this, but again, this is kind of a boilerplate statement. We see this in here a lot. You may or may not have to provide uniforms. It's actually not clear. It's going to be whatever the customer wants once you get the contract. If you're worried about the cost of that, t-shirts or long sleeves, something with a collar, it's probably not going to cost a lot, and you can probably get 3, 4, or 5 of them made, so your employee doesn't have to wear the same thing every day. I mean, it shouldn't cost you a lot. I mean, put $100 in your quote for it to cover it. And I wouldn't worry about having to, do the dry cleaning and stuff, because this is not the nature of work for that. So that's really not too big of a deal. Let me see. And Santiago says, if you need uniforms, my company can provide those to you. So just throwing that out there, right? I appreciate the walkthrough. You pointed out a few things I missed. This is my first bid, so I'm super grateful for the extra help. Hey, we're rooting for you, and good for you for making the most use of the time, because Florentina, I'm doing this for you guys, and I've been saying it the last couple of days. It's my goal. It's my mission to show up 10 times the amount that I did in 2020. In 2021, I want to show up a lot more for you guys. I really want to grow the channel. I want to see a lot of you winning your first contract. And that doesn't mean the first one you bid on, you're going to win, but you learn so much after going through the first process. So then the next process, the second time or the third time you bid on a contract, your confidence is just getting so much greater, and you eventually are going to win. And then once you win, it's all like, positive momentum, snowball effect from that point onwards. So good for you. I mean, I just want to give you credit for your bidding during the holidays here. And let us know. Let us know if you win. If you don't win, you can try to request what's called a proposal debrief for the contracting person on this. And they may not give it to you because it's not really a proposal. It's just a price quote. But you could try. And what that would mean is they'd get on the phone with you for 15 or 20 minutes and kind of walk through your offer and tell you anything you could have done better. But since it's just price, and they don't usually talk about price a whole lot, they may not take you up on that. But if you wanted to do that, if you don't win, send the contracting officer an email within 72 hours, request a quote unquote proposal debrief to go through your response and see what they say. I always say it can't hurt. And if nothing else, it gives you another opportunity to get in front of that customer or the contracting officer and further build a relationship on a professional basis with them. Just anything you can do with the contracting officer is going to be good, because they're going to get to know, like, and trust you that much more. So yeah. Thank you for sharing that with us so we could walk through it today. So guys, I'm going to not look at any more bids now. And hey, Isaiah, what is going on? Glad to see you. Me and Isaiah got to have a chat yesterday, and he's also going into janitorial. So this is like perfect in line with what he's doing. He's got some good stuff lined up. He's about ready to set the world on fire. He's getting his cage code, and he's moving forward, and he's going to be looking at state and federal and some of those things. But I was thinking of you, Isaiah. I was like, man, I wish he could be here because this is going to be right up his alley. So really cool to see you in the chat there as well. Yeah. So guys, I'm going to spend a few more minutes now. We're just going to be in the chat. I'm not going to look at any more bids, try and not lose my voice here. So let me go back, and I'm going to go back up in the chat because I know I missed some stuff. But if I missed you, I'll try to get you. And if I don't read it, try and put it again in case I missed it. So, and I hope this has been helpful. Let me know if you like this, because I'm kind of self-conscious about it because I think it's valuable. I think it's helpful, but I want to make sure that you guys are actually liking this type of setup with me going through a bid, kind of talking about the main points, and answering questions about it. Literally let me know, if you like this, or if you could think of something that would be more helpful that I haven't considered. Let me know that. That's the type of thing that would really help me a lot at the end of the day when I go to sleep. I want to make sure I'm doing things that are helpful and I'm not just wasting time. So that's, if you want to help me out, that's something that would help me out. So I'm going to try to go back to the chat to where I left off. Uh, 911 Bishop, if a person wants to bid on products that I could purchase from one supplier and resell to the government, I'm reminded of a road salt story. Does one need to pay cash for the product up front? So you need to do whatever you got to do to provide the product. So if that means paying cash, then you have to pay cash from whoever you're purchasing from. If you're operating off of a line of credit, or if you have some sort of loan or whatever, it doesn't have to be cash. I'm not sure if your question is about, hey, is the government going to give me the money up front to get this? If that's the case, the answer is always no. You have to get it on your own. So whether it's cash or whether it's something else, then that's really up to you as a business owner and expert in your field. You need to be able to be a sound financial business in order to provide whatever the good is that you are going to be a reseller for. So manufacturers often have a line of credit or something, especially if you can show them like a purchase order or the contract that you're going to be getting paid from the government. That way they know you're going to be getting money and you'll be able to pay them. So it's kind of, borrowing from Peter to pay Paul type thing. Sometimes manufacturers will go along with something like that. Yeah, and it looks like Kafufa. I'm sorry, I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, but thanks for helping out. Yeah, you don't get paid until delivery and inspection and completion. Basically, once they say, hey, it's here, it's not damaged, and it is per the specs that we've wanted. That's what he is saying here. And that's absolutely correct. After that's all done, then you can get paid. So they don't front you the money. Moonman says, this is really helpful in knowing how to use this new site. Thank you so much. Absolutely. Thanks for letting me know that it was helpful. Groove Kids says, when bidding the numbers, they tell you how many days they want the service, but how do you know how long it will take in hours? Do you use square footage? I want to make sure I won't be underbidding. So for the examples that we were looking at, Groove Kids, they were talking about basically the frequency of the job that needs to be completed by. So they wanted to know what was the price per month. And that was also with Florentina's example. So in the context of what we looked at today, there was nothing with hours. It was basically job completion focused. However many hours it takes is on you, which means you as a small business owner, as a contractor, you are incentivized to finish it sooner while keeping the quality standards where they need to be. But the sooner that's what a firm fixed price contract is. It means we're not going to give you more money, but if you do it for less, that means you just gave yourself a bonus, right? That's why we incentivize managers with performance bonuses or to finish early so that they see that the job or the contract is done, basically on time and under budget is the term that we use in the industry, on time and under budget, or even under time, under budget, because you're just keeping all that money because the government's still going to pay you the X amount anyways. It's not like a variable price contract or time and materials contract, where if the time changes, it's also variable so that if it's less time, you get paid less. These are the type of contracts where you're incentivized to finish earlier. So the way you base it off of, is off of the square footage, as you said, and do a good job. And the sooner you can finish or your employee can finish, good for you, kind of. So let's see here. Santiago says, quick question. Have you used Deltek Cost Point before, or is there another platform you will recommend for timesheets, finance, etc.? I have not used Deltek Cost Point. You don't have to use necessarily a government contracting solution. You can use like other just payroll solutions for timesheets and things of that nature, if that's specifically the need that you're talking about. I know Gusto, if you look up Gusto, they are a very low cost payroll provider, and at the certain levels of payments, they can do like requests for time off, timesheet keeping things. With the government, they need you to have a timesheet. That's one of the compliance things with staffing. There needs to be like a signed timesheet. They want it done the old fashioned way. So to be compliant, you want to make sure you're using technology that can afford you those things. But it doesn't necessarily have to be a government contractor solution. Some of these outside solutions are cheaper, and they are also still in compliance just because they happen to be. So Deltek, I know just in general, they're on the high end for other things. I've used Deltek for other softwares that are like in the tens of thousands of dollars. And it's for some, I would say for large businesses, they're a great fit. But for us teams of 1 and 2, it's very cost prohibitive, I would say. Josh says, if I were to reach out to a company, get an email address, and agree that I'd reach out on this contract on their behalf and get paid, etc. Josh, here's the rest of your question. I could theoretically get the contract and not be the actual contractor. Makes sense. So let me read that again to make sure I'm grasping it. If I were to reach out to a company, get an email address, and agree that I reach out on this contract on their behalf and get paid, I could theoretically get the contract and not be the actual contractor. I mean, kind of, sort of. It depends, because contracts are awarded not to people most of the time. They are awarded to a business. So the contract still is going to go to the EIN and the cage code for whatever the business is. So if it's the business that you're reaching out to, it's still going to be their contract. So I'm not sure if I'm understanding that correctly, but there are other times where you can just apply to a job and submit your resume, and you are just using your own social security number as the business because you're a sole proprietor. And sometimes you can undercut all the businesses if you're going to actually do the job yourself. So I know contract employees that do this, and they bounce. And instead of going to like a government contracting, company that does staffing, professional services like we're talking about, they're just like, hey, we're going to cut out the middleman. I'm the one who's actually doing the work. Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer, here's my resume. And I'm going to do it for a lot cheaper because, I don't have all the markup that the contract small business has. I've seen that also kind of an interesting point, but yeah. Willie says, could you use a teaming agreement on this contract, or would this be considered a single source? So Willie, I don't know that you would have to do any teaming on something like this. I'm not sure which. I'm assuming you're referring to Florentina's bid that we just went through. You wouldn't need to do any teaming, and it wouldn't be sole source either. It wouldn't be a single source or a direct award because it's being competed. It's competitive requirement. A single source just goes to one straight company, and nobody else gets a chance to compete for it. That's what a single source is. But teaming, I don't know why you would do teaming. You're probably referring to your relationship between you as the business owner and whoever's doing the work. They straight up said they don't want you to subcontract. So this person would have to be your employee. So it wouldn't be a teaming relationship. It would be an employer-employee relationship. So there probably wouldn't be teaming at all. There wouldn't be room for something like that, if I'm understanding you correctly. Berwin says, does the Army have its own bid site? So certain sub branches of the Army have their own bid sites. The primary one is the DLA. So the DLA will have their own website. So it's kind of hard to see it because most of what is on those sub websites will go on something like beta.sam. So I try not to get too much into the weeds on those subsites because they will all be pulled. And sometimes you'll even be on beta.sam and then you'll look at an opportunity that it will link you up to one of those subsites because that's where the primary documents is at. So it really kind of depends, but I know the DLA specifically has one, but not all of them do. And I quite frankly, I tell everybody just stick to the main, stick to what's free, stick to beta.sam, which used to be FBO. That is really where everything is going to be, or most of everything is going to be. Angelique says, what are your thoughts on being a prime for a janitorial contract? Any suggestions on how to find a good subcontractor, what to look for? So Angelique, so again, what we're looking at today, both of these we looked at, these are prime. These are both prime examples, prime models. Florentina is responding to this bid as a prime. So again, the employee that's doing the job is not a subcontractor. They are your employee. So a subcontractor would be if you as the prime won the contract and then you contacted another company and said, hey, we don't have employees to fill this. I know that you do. So you have your employees come in and fill this. We'll be the prime and you be the sub. They said on this, they don't want that. Typically, they don't like that at all. You have to deal with limitations on subcontracting. If you watched my YouTube video on doing the middleman strategy the legal way, we know that you can do it underneath the simplified acquisition procedures, but anything in excess of the SAP, you have to do at least half of the work yourself. So it kind of prohibits you from doing that because they don't want money going to a prime and then it just being sucked out and really going to the sub. The government doesn't want that, especially when you get into set-asides. For example, if the government is trying to incentivize woman-owned small businesses, so they set it aside for woman-owned small businesses to respond to, and then you as a WOSB win the contract, and then you just sub it out to somebody who's not a WOSB, and you just basically the money goes to them, and you just keep a small profit. Then that's basically going against you're taking funds, government funds, and you're putting them in places the government doesn't want them, and the government does not like that. So they call subcontracting to like kind. So they would feel better about it if you subcontracted to another woman-owned small business. So at least this way, the WOSB is still getting the money and the incentive is working properly. So that's, but again, what are your thoughts on being a prime? I say you should do it. I think everybody should be a prime who can. I am not a huge proponent, I never have been, of being a subcontractor. I think stuff rolls downhill. I think subcontractors got it really hard. It's definitely a viable strategy and my heart goes out to them, but it's really tough. Subcontractors are folks that don't do business directly with the government Instead, they do business with another business who does business with the government. So if you don't want to know, how to do all the government forms and the government lingo, those small business owners hang out as a subcontractor. But eventually you should graduate to become a prime because you're going to make a lot more money. So that's my answer to that. Hey, Jen, good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. Yes, very helpful. Very helpful. Thank you, especially since there's no training out there. I know it's really far and few the information that is out there. I'm trying to help fill that gap. Absolutely. Josh, thanks. Was thinking of creative ways to get the contract. I'd get a percentage from the company. So Josh, yeah, I kind of what you're referring to probably is being a GovCon consultant. Some other folks on YouTube talk about this being a strategy. If you're going to be a GovCon consultant and basically develop relationships with other small businesses that don't know much about government contracting, and you can go out and be on the front lines and help secure a contract, and then they just fulfill it, and you're kind of like a middleman in that capacity. It is something that folks do. I don't talk about the strategy at all because it's talked about a lot right now, and people are doing it that don't know anything about government contracting. I could see myself being a GovCon consultant. It's not something I want to do. Just make sure you're knowledgeable enough to actually provide value to somebody. If you're going to be commission-based, then yeah, the onus is on you, and I say go for it. But if you're going to try to be salaried or something like that, make sure you can deliver. Don't be somebody that's trying to take advantage of somebody when you don't really know the industry that well yourself. So just make sure you know your stuff. I think that's where you're going with this, Josh. I like the creative thinking. I love that. And, thanks for sharing, because that's what this is all about, guys. Finding different ways that we can make do with what we have to work with. Santiago says, thanks for sharing your perspective. It was always helpful to hear from another person involved in the business. Absolutely. Yep. So awesome, guys. I think I'm going to call it here. We've gone a little bit over an hour, and it's been awesome. And Florentino, we're all sending you our best. And we really hope, let us know. Let us know what happens either way, if you win this contract or not. But especially if you win it, let us know. We'll be definitely pulling for you. It'd be so awesome if you won this one. If you guys like government contracting and you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I would ask that you consider it, because government contracting is all that I do. And like we talked about, there's a lot of lacking information in the space and a lot of misinformation in the space. And I've dedicated myself full time to being a GovCon coach for the last 2.5 years now. I'm still new. I'm still getting the hang of it. But like I said, also, I plan to show up for you guys kind of 10x this next year ahead. So consider subscribing to the channel if that's something you think you'd like to be part of our community. We also have a Facebook group of almost 3,000 people. So we're trying to create a ruckus. We're trying to create a change here and help so many of you get into government contracting, or if you're already in it, to be more successful. And, we're all about winning contracts here. That's what we talk about. And if you liked this video, feel free to hit that like button. It helps the algorithm, and it helps me to show up for other people that are looking for stuff like this and maybe they haven't found it yet. I found a lot of people say, man, I wish I would have found you sooner. This information was so helpful. So clicking that like button, it's not just for me, but it's for them. And I very much appreciate it. So thanks for hanging out today, guys. I am going to do this tomorrow. I'm going to officially say that I'm going to do this again tomorrow. So if you like this, I'm going to do a different topic, a different industry. If you have an industry that you want covered, I didn't touch on yours today with janitorial, add that in the comments, after the video goes live now or in the chat. And I'll consider doing that for tomorrow's, because right now I don't have really too many options to go with. Otherwise, I'll just kind of pick something that I like. So thanks for hanging out, guys. This has been a lot of fun, and I will see you tomorrow.